The orbital station above Proxima Centauri gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Inside its massive assembly hall, representatives from 300 different species waited in their designated chambers. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some stood on legs, others floated in anti-gravity fields. But all of them had come for the same reason: to witness Earth's application for membership in the Galactic Council. Captain Lee. Minho adjusted his uniform collar and tried to ignore the butterflies in his stomach. He had served in Earth's Space Navy for 15 years, fought in 2 colonial wars, and negotiated treaties with mining corporations. None of that had prepared him for this moment. Behind him stood Ambassador Park Ji-woo, a woman whose sharp mind had earned her the reputation as Earth's finest diplomat. She placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've prepared for this," she whispered. "Our presentation is perfect. The votes are there." Minho nodded, though he wasn't entirely convinced. The Galactic Council operated on rules that humanity was still learning. 300 species, each with their own agendas, their own histories, their own prejudices. Earth needed a simple majority to gain membership. The preliminary counts showed they had it. The chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. A being that looked like a floating jellyfish with crystalline tendrils announced their turn. Minho and Park Ji-woo walked forward into the central platform, which rose slowly until they stood before the entire assembly. Thousands of eyes, sensors, and optical organs focused on them. Park Ji-woo began the presentation. She spoke clearly. Her words translated instantly into hundreds of languages by the Council's systems. She talked about Earth's achievements, its scientific advances, its cultural diversity. She showed images of human cities, of art and music, of the colonies spreading across the solar system. She emphasized humanity's desire to learn, to grow, to contribute to the galactic community. Minho watched the reactions carefully. Some species seemed impressed. Others appeared bored. A few showed obvious hostility, but most seemed neutral, which was good enough. They just needed the votes. The presentation ended. Park Ji-woo bowed respectfully and stepped back. Now came the voting period. Species would have one cycle to cast their votes, and then Earth would learn its fate. But before the session could adjourn, something unexpected happened. A section of the chamber that had remained dark suddenly blazed with light. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly. Even the translator system seemed to stutter. Minho felt his heart skip a beat as he recognized what was happening. The ancients were speaking. The ancients rarely attended council sessions. They were the oldest known species in the galaxy, having achieved spaceflight over 2 million years ago. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed stars being born and dying. They held a permanent seat on the council and possessed a power that no other species had: the absolute veto. From the illuminated chamber, a figure emerged. It moved slowly, deliberately, floating rather than walking. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Its face, if it could be called that, had no mouth, only large eyes that seemed to contain entire galaxies. This was Elder Ventar, one of the 5 ancient representatives. "We invoke our right." Ventar's voice echoed through the chamber, though its mouth never moved. The words simply appeared in everyone's mind. "We veto Earth's application, Silence." Complete absolute silence. Even the ever-present hum of the station's systems seemed to fade. Park Ji-woo's face went pale. Minho felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. A veto from the ancients was rare. It had happened only 6 times in recorded galactic history. Each time it meant something serious, something dangerous. The last veto had been 3,000 years ago, blocking a species that later proved to be aggressively expansionist. Another being appeared beside Ventar. This was Rimhak, the Elder's advisor, slightly smaller but no less imposing. Rimhak's presence confirmed this wasn't a mistake or a formality. Park Ji-woo recovered her composure quickly. "Honored Elder, we respectfully request an explanation. What have we done to warrant this decision?" Ventar's enormous eyes fixed on her, then shifted to Minho, then seemed to look past them both, as if seeing through the station itself back to Earth. When the ancient spoke again, its mental voice carried an emotion that surprised everyone: fear. "We do not fear humans," Ventar said slowly. "We fear what else walks among them." The chamber erupted. Delegates began talking at once, their various languages creating a cacophony that the translation systems struggled to process. Park Ji-woo tried to speak again, but her voice was lost in the noise. Minho stepped forward, his military training taking over. "What do you mean?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Explain yourself." But Ventar was already retreating back into the darkness of its chamber. Rimhak lingered for a moment longer, and Minho could have sworn he saw something like pity in the advisor's expression. Then both ancients were gone and the light faded. The council moderator, a quadrupedal creature with blue fur, struggled to restore order. It took several minutes before the delegates calmed down enough for the session to continue. But there was nothing to continue. An ancient veto was final. No appeal, no negotiation, no second chance. Earth's application was dead. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, Minho and Park Ji-woo reviewed everything that had happened, searching for clues, for explanations, for anything that might help them understand. They watched the recording of the hearing dozens of times. It was during the 15th viewing that Minho noticed something odd. He had connected the council's data feed to their ship's medical scanner, hoping to analyze the ancients' biological responses. When he isolated Ventar's readings during the moment of the veto, what he found made his blood run cold. "Ji-woo, look at this," he called out. Park Ji-woo came to his station and studied the screen. The readings showed Ventar's biological state during those crucial seconds. Heart rate, if the ancient had such a thing, had spiked. Chemical markers associated with extreme stress flooded its system. The readings were clear and unmistakable. Ventar hadn't been making a political decision. The ancient had been genuinely terrified. "What else walks among them?" Park Ji-woo repeated the elder's words quietly. "Minho, what did they see that we don't?" Minho stared out the viewport at the stars rushing past. Somewhere out there, Earth waited for news of their failure. And somewhere on Earth, or perhaps around it, something existed that frightened beings who had lived for millions of years. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think we need to find out fast." The ship continued its journey home, carrying 2 humans who had left Earth as hopeful diplomats and were returning as investigators of a mystery that might determine their species' survival. Behind them, the Galactic Council began to whisper, and in the dark corners of the galaxy, ancient species who remembered the old warnings started to take notice of the small blue planet that the elders feared. Whatever the truth was, it had been hidden for a very long time. But secrets, Minho knew, never stayed buried forever. Dr. Kim Hyun had never expected to receive a call from the president's office, especially not at 3 in the morning. She stumbled out of bed, nearly tripping over her cat, and answered the vid screen with her hair still messy from sleep. The face that appeared wasn't the president, but it was almost as important. Captain Lee Minho looked tired, his eyes red from too many sleepless nights. "Dr. Kim, we need your expertise," he said without preamble.
"How quickly can you get to Geneva?"
6 hours later, Hyun sat in a conference room deep beneath the United Earth Government headquarters. The room had no windows and was shielded against every known form of surveillance. Around the table sat 15 people, all experts in various fields. She recognized some faces from news broadcasts. Lieutenant Choi Daeun from military intelligence sat across from her. Kang Woo-jin, the famous tech analyst who had cracked the Martian encryption codes, was there too, and at the head of the table sat Ambassador Park Ji-woo, who looked even more exhausted than Minho. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Park Ji-woo began. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. Earth's application to the Galactic Council was vetoed by the ancients. They said, and I quote, 'We do not fear humans. We fear what else walks among them.'" Hyun felt a chill run down her spine. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. The implications of those words were staggering. "Our task is simple," Park Ji-woo continued. "Find out what the ancients are afraid of. Find out what they saw, and find out if it's real or just a mistake." For the next 2 weeks, the team worked around the clock. Hyun dove into every database she could access, looking for patterns, for clues, for anything unusual in Earth's history or biology. Woo-jin hacked into ancient council records that technically Earth shouldn't have been able to see yet. Choi Daeun coordinated intelligence assets across the solar system, looking for anything out of place. It was Hyun who made the first breakthrough. She was reviewing historical council records when she noticed something odd. The ancients had used their veto power only 6 times before Earth. She pulled up the details on each case and started comparing them. The first veto had been against a species called the Venkari. Over 50,000 years ago, The second against the Tholians 30,000 years later. The pattern continued. But it wasn't the species themselves that caught her attention. It was what happened to them afterward. They were all quarantined, she announced to the team during their morning briefing. Every single species the ancients vetoed was placed under permanent quarantine. No trade, no contact, nothing. They're isolated from the rest of the galaxy. How many total? Minho asked. 47 worlds, Hayun replied. And I found something else. I managed to get some basic information about these species. They all share one characteristic. She pulled up a star chart showing the quarantined worlds scattered across the galaxy. Different colors marked different stellar types, different planetary compositions, different evolutionary paths. But when she overlaid another data set, a pattern emerged. They're all twin worlds, Wu Jin said, leaning forward to study the display. Each system has 2 planets that developed intelligent life. Not just 2 planets, Hayun corrected. 2 species on the same planet. Parallel evolution. In every single case, the world developed 2 different intelligent species at roughly the same time. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Choi Dae-eun was the first to speak. Are you saying Earth has another intelligent species we don't know about? I'm saying that's what the ancients believe, Hayun replied carefully. Whether it's true or not, that's what we need to find out. Lieutenant Choi Dae-eun took over from there. She had been running her own investigation through military channels, reviewing deep space scanning data from the past century. What she found was almost impossible to believe. Yet the data didn't lie. 3 months ago, our Deep Space Observatory in the Kuiper Belt detected something unusual, Choi Dae-eun explained, bringing up a series of complex readings on the main screen. A gravitational anomaly. It's small, roughly planetary mass, but it's not where any planet should be. She zoomed in on a region of space far beyond Neptune's orbit. We initially thought it was Planet 9, the theoretical planet astronomers have been looking for. But the readings don't match. This object phases in and out of normal space. Sometimes we can detect it, sometimes we can't. It's like it exists in a dimensional fold. That's not possible, one of the physicists objected. We don't have the technology for dimensional manipulation. We don't, Choi Dae-eun agreed. But maybe someone else does. Wu Jin had been working on decrypting ancient databases that Earth's intelligence services had acquired through questionable means. The encryption was incredibly sophisticated, layers upon layers of security that would take normal computers centuries to crack. But Wu Jin wasn't using normal computers, and he wasn't exactly following legal methods. I found references to something called the Others, he announced during their 3rd week of investigation. It appears in ancient texts going back almost 1,000,000 years. Every time a twin world is discovered, they mention the Others. From what I can translate, the Others are always the more dangerous species. More dangerous than the dominant species? Minho asked. That's what it says. The pattern is consistent across all 47 quarantined worlds. In each case, there's a surface species and a secondary species. The surface species is usually the one that develops visible civilization, technology, spaceflight. But the secondary species, the Others, they're the ones the ancients fear. Why? Park Ji-woo demanded. Wu Jin shook his head. The texts aren't clear. It's like they're afraid to even write it down. But there are hints. Words that translate roughly as survivors, adapters, the unbreakable ones. The pieces were coming together, but they still didn't have definitive proof. That changed when Hayun received a call from an old colleague at the Antarctic Research Station. They had found something while drilling through the ice sheet, something that shouldn't exist. Hayun took the next transport south, bringing Minho and Choi Dae-eun with her. The research station sat on the edge of the Ross Ice Shelf, a cluster of buildings huddled against the eternal cold. The head researcher, Dr. Park Jin-woo, met them at the entrance. We were drilling core samples when we hit something solid at 3,000 meters, Jin-woo explained as he led them through narrow corridors. At first we thought it was rock, but the density was wrong. So we used ground-penetrating radar to map it. He brought them to a lab where a 3D holographic display showed what lay beneath the ice. Hayun gasped. It wasn't rock. It was structure. Artificial structure. Corridors, chambers, what looked like entire cities carved into the bedrock beneath Antarctica. How old? Minho asked quietly. The ice above it is at least 50,000 years old, Jin-woo replied. But the structures themselves could be much older. Hundreds of thousands of years, maybe more. They stood in silence, staring at the evidence that Earth had indeed hosted another civilization. A civilization that had been here long before humanity built its first cities. A civilization that had hidden itself so well that humans had never known it existed. Park Ji-woo arrived at the station the next day with a team of specialists. They spent a week analyzing the data, running tests, comparing notes. The conclusion was unavoidable. The ancients were right, Park Ji-woo said during a secure video conference with Earth's president and top military commanders. We're not alone on Earth, we never have been. Where are they now? The president asked. That's the question, Minho replied, looking at the scan data from the Antarctic structures. These cities are old, but they're not abandoned. Some of the passages show signs of recent maintenance. Whatever built this is still here, still watching, and the ancients know about them. Hyun pulled up the data from the Kuiper Belt anomaly, the historical records of the quarantined worlds, and the Antarctic discoveries. When she overlaid all three datasets, the picture became clear. Earth is a twin world, she said softly. Humanity evolved on the surface. But something else evolved here too. Something that chose to stay hidden, and according to the ancients' pattern, that something is more dangerous than we are. In the cold depths of Antarctica, surrounded by evidence of a hidden civilization, the team realized they had only scratched the surface of the mystery. The real question wasn't whether Earth had another intelligent species. The question was what that species wanted, why they had stayed hidden, and what would happen when the two species finally met face to face. Above them, 3 kilometers of ice pressed down. And somewhere in that frozen darkness, in tunnels and chambers that predated human civilization, something else was having its own discussions about the humans who had finally discovered their secret. Dr. Yoon Sora had spent 15 years digging up the past. As an archaeologist, she had explored ruins on every continent, uncovering pieces of human history that textbooks had forgotten. But nothing in her career had prepared her for what she found in the caves beneath the Himalayas. The expedition had started normally enough. Local guides had reported strange symbols in a cave system that tourists rarely visited. Sora had gone with a small team, expecting to find some ancient Buddhist monastery or perhaps prehistoric cave paintings. What they found instead changed everything. The symbols weren't Buddhist. They weren't Hindu. They weren't from any known human culture. They covered the walls in precise geometric patterns that hurt to look at too long. And beneath the symbols, carved into the living rock with tools that left no marks, were doorways. Doorways that led down. Sora immediately contacted the government, and within 24 hours, Captain Lee Minho and his team arrived by military transport. They stood in the cave entrance, staring at the symbols that seemed to shift in the light. This is the 5th site like this we've found in 3 weeks, Sora explained, her voice echoing off the stone walls. There's one in the Amazon, one in the Congo, one under the Sahara, and one in the Australian outback. All of them have these same symbols. All of them go deep underground. Have you explored below? Minho asked. We tried. Our equipment fails after about 50 meters. Electronics shut down. Lights go out, even mechanical devices stop working. It's like something is blocking us. Dr. Kim Hae-yoon ran her scanner over the nearest doorway. There's an electromagnetic field here, but it's not natural. Someone is generating it. Someone who doesn't want visitors. They set up camp in the cave and began systematic studies. Woo Jin tried to hack the EM field. Choi Daeon brought in military scanning equipment, and Hae-yoon analyzed every centimeter of the strange symbols. Days passed with little progress. Whatever lay below remained hidden. Then on the 7th night, something changed. Minho was on watch duty, sitting near the cave entrance with a cup of coffee, when he noticed the EM field fluctuate. The lights they had set up deeper in the cave dimmed, then brightened, then dimmed again. It looked almost like a pattern, like a signal. Everyone up, he called out, waking the camp. Something's happening. They gathered their equipment and moved deeper into the cave. The EM field was definitely behaving differently now, pulsing with a rhythm that Woo Jin's instrument struggled to measure. And then, without warning, it stopped completely. The doorway stood open before them, no longer blocked by invisible barriers. From the darkness below came a faint glow, blue-white and cold like starlight trapped in ice. Should we go down? Sora asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, something came up. A figure emerged from the depths, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost inhuman. It was roughly human in shape, standing about 2 meters tall, but that's where the similarities ended. Its skin was translucent, revealing networks of veins that glowed faintly with that same blue-white light. Its eyes were large and dark, adapted for seeing in places where sunlight never reached. It wore no clothes, needing none, its skin capable of withstanding extremes that would kill a human in seconds. Lieutenant Choi Dayun immediately raised her weapon, but the being made no threatening moves. Instead, it simply stood there, watching them with those dark eyes that seemed impossibly old. "Don't shoot," Hayun said quietly, stepping forward slowly. She held up her empty hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. The being tilted its head, studying her. Then it did something unexpected. It spoke. "You finally found us," the words came out in perfect English, though the being's mouth barely moved. We wondered how long it would take. Over the next hours, as dawn broke over the Himalayas above them, the being told them a story that rewrote everything humanity thought it knew about Earth. The being's name, translated into human sounds, was Nari. She was what humans might call an ambassador, though her people had no formal government in the human sense. Her species had no name for themselves in human language, but humanity's myths and legends had given them many names: the hidden folk, the underground people, the pale ones. "We diverged from you 200,000 years ago," Nari explained as they sat in a circle around a chemical light. "During the ice age that nearly killed all life on the surface, your ancestors stayed above and adapted to the cold. Ours went below and adapted to the depths. Why didn't we know about you?" Minho asked. "Because we chose to hide. The surface is yours. We have no interest in it. The sun burns us, the air is too rich in oxygen for comfort, and your populations grew too large too fast. We retreated deeper and watched as you built your civilizations." Sora leaned forward, her archaeologist's mind racing. "But we found evidence of you. The structures in Antarctica, these caves, places all over the world." "Yes," Nari acknowledged. "We couldn't hide completely. Sometimes we interacted with surface humans, traded with them, taught them things, warned them of dangers. Your mythologies remember us, though you thought we were just stories." "What dangers?" Choi Dayun asked suspiciously, her hand still near her weapon. Nari's dark eyes fixed on the lieutenant. "Asteroid impacts we detected early. Volcanic eruptions we predicted. 3 times in your history, we prevented nuclear wars by sabotaging weapon systems. You thought those were accidents or technical failures. They weren't. The implications were staggering. An entire intelligent species living beneath humanity's feet, watching, sometimes helping, remaining completely hidden." Hayun had so many questions she didn't know where to start. "Why reveal yourselves now?" she asked finally. "Because you reached for the stars," Nari replied simply. "And the ancients noticed. They know what we are. They've seen species like us before on other twin worlds. They're afraid of what might happen if we unite with you." "Why would they be afraid?" Minho demanded. "We're peaceful. Both of our species seem peaceful." Nari's expression, alien as it was, showed something that might have been sadness. "Because we're not just different, Captain. We're complementary. You adapt through technology. You build tools, machines, weapons. You spread fast and think in decades. We adapt through biology. Our bodies change to survive any environment. We think in centuries and survive events that would exterminate surface species." She stood up, her translucent skin catching the light. "Do you know how many extinction-level events we've survived?" 6. 6 times the surface world was scoured clean of most life. Your ancestors barely survived 2 of them. We survived all 6. We didn't do it with technology. We did it by changing ourselves, by going deeper, by becoming harder to kill." "You're saying we're dangerous together," Park Ji-woo said quietly. She had arrived an hour earlier and had been listening silently. "The ancients think so," Nari confirmed. "They've seen it before. A twin world where both species united and became something the galaxy had never seen. They spread to a dozen systems in a century. They adapted to every environment, survived every threat. The ancients had to quarantine them, and even then they're not sure the quarantine will hold forever." The cave fell silent except for the drip of water somewhere in the depths. The humans looked at each other, processing this new reality. They weren't humanity's only children. Earth had 2 species capable of reaching the stars. And together, they might be something that even beings millions of years old had reason to fear. "So what do we do?" Sora asked finally. Nari looked at each of them in turn. "That's your choice. You can pretend you never found us. We can stay hidden and you can join the Galactic Council alone. Or we can stop hiding. We can meet your leaders, share what we know, and face whatever comes next together. And if we choose to work together, Minho said slowly, the ancients will try to stop us. Yes, Nari agreed. They'll quarantine Earth, they might do worse. Other species will see us as a threat. You'll face isolation, possibly hostility, maybe even war. But if we don't work together, Hayun asked, then we stay hidden as we have been. Your species continues alone. You might eventually join the council, though it will take time to overcome the ancients' veto, and will continue as we always have, watching from below, occasionally helping when we can. Nothing changes. Park Ji-woo stood up and walked to the cave entrance. Outside, the sun was rising over the mountains, painting the snow golden. Somewhere up there, Earth's leaders were waiting for news. Somewhere out in space, the Galactic Council was watching to see what humanity would do. Nothing changes, she repeated softly, except now we know the truth. We know we're not alone. Can we really go back to pretending otherwise? Nari moved to stand beside her, careful to stay in the shadow where the direct sunlight wouldn't burn her pale skin. That's why I revealed myself now. Because you deserve to make an informed choice. Your species stands at a crossroads. What you decide in the next weeks will shape your future for centuries. Below them, in tunnels that stretched for thousands of kilometers through Earth's crust, millions of pale ones waited to see what the surface humans would choose. Above them, satellites and space stations orbited, humanity's reach already extending beyond their home world. And far away, in the cold depths of space, the ancients watched and wondered if history was about to repeat itself. President An Mirai sat in the emergency session chamber, surrounded by advisors, military commanders, and representatives from every major nation on Earth. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing data feeds from around the world. And in the center of the room, standing calmly despite the chaos around her, was Nari. It had been 3 weeks since the first contact in the Himalayas. 3 weeks of secret meetings, tense negotiations, and heated debates. Some humans wanted to welcome the Pale Ones. Others wanted to keep them hidden. A vocal minority wanted to eliminate them as a threat. The world was divided, afraid, confused. Let me make sure I understand, President An said, her voice cutting through the arguments. If we acknowledge your existence publicly, the Galactic Council will likely quarantine Earth. We'll be isolated, possibly for centuries. But if we keep you hidden, we continue as before, with humanity alone representing Earth. That's correct, Nari replied. Her English had improved remarkably in just 3 weeks, or perhaps she had always been this fluent and had simply chosen not to reveal it. Though I should clarify that keeping us hidden is no longer truly possible. Too many humans know now. The secret will spread eventually. Commander Han Tai-Yang, the head of Earth's combined military forces, stood up abruptly. Then the choice is simple. We announce your existence, we take control of the situation, and we prepare for whatever comes. Hiding achieves nothing. Except it buys us time, argued Minister Zhao, the economic advisor. Time to build our defenses, time to establish stronger colonies, time to prepare. If we reveal the Pale Ones now, we'll face immediate consequences. If we wait, we'll be stronger when the truth comes out. Waiting means lying, Ambassador Park Ji-woo said quietly. It means going to the Galactic Council and pretending we're something we're not. How long can we maintain that deception? And what happens when they find out we've been lying? The debate continued for hours. Minho and his team presented their findings, showing the evidence from the quarantined twin worlds, explaining the ancients' fears. Dr. Kim Hae-yoon presented biological data on the Pale Ones, demonstrating how different they were from humans and yet how compatible. Dr. Yoon, Sora showed archaeological evidence proving the Pale Ones had been on Earth far longer than human civilization. But data and evidence couldn't answer the fundamental question. What should Earth do? While Earth debated, the Galactic Council was having its own crisis. Word of the investigation had leaked, as secrets always do. Species that had remained neutral were now taking sides. Some, like the Vexians and the Trell, argued that Earth should be given a chance. Others, led by High Admiral Krell of the militant Karathi Dominion, pushed for immediate action. We cannot wait for them to unite, Krell argued before the full council. History shows what happens when twin worlds combine their strengths. They become unstoppable. We must act now while they're still divided. Elder Ventar sat in the ancient's chamber, listening to the debates with growing unease. Beside him, Rimhawk spoke softly. It's happening again, isn't it? Just like Vorkanis. Ventar nodded slowly. Vorkanis had been a twin world discovered almost 1,000,000 years ago. Both species had been advanced, peaceful, curious. The ancients had tried to integrate them into the galactic community. Within 2 centuries, the unified Vorkanis had spread to 15 systems, their combined abilities making them nearly impossible to compete with. The council had been forced to quarantine them, and the guilt of that decision still haunted the ancients. I fear we're repeating our mistakes, Ventar said. But I don't know which mistake. Should we have accepted Vorkanis and dealt with the consequences, or should we have been even harsher with them? I've lived 2,000,000 years and I still don't know the answer. The crisis came to a head when High Admiral Krell decided to force the issue. Without council authorization, he dispatched one of his warships to the Sol system. Officially, it was a routine patrol that happened to pass through the area. Unofficially, everyone knew it was a test. The warship entered the outer Sol system, its weapons powered but not targeted. It was a message: we're watching. We're ready. Don't make us act. On Earth, military alerts went out immediately. Commander Han Taiyang scrambled the defense fleet such as it was. Humanity had a dozen warships built during the colonial expansion, designed for fighting pirates and settling disputes with mining corporations. They were no match for a Karathi cruiser. We're outgunned and outclassed, Han Taiyang reported to President An. If they attack, we'll fight, but we'll lose. Minho was in the command center when Nari appeared beside him. She moved so quietly he hadn't heard her approach, a reminder that the Pale Ones had abilities humans lacked. Your ships won't be enough, she said simply. I know, Minho admitted, but we have to try. We can't just surrender. We don't intend to, Nari replied. Our people have been monitoring your military channels. With your permission, we'd like to help. How? No offense, but your people don't have spaceships. You don't have weapons. Nari's dark eyes reflected the light from the tactical displays. We don't have your kind of weapons, but we have other capabilities. The question is, are you willing to work with us? Really work with us? This would be the first time our species have cooperated on something like this. There's no going back from it. Minho looked at the display showing the Karathi warship steadily approaching. He thought about the debates, the arguments, the fear and uncertainty. Then he thought about what Nari had told them in the cave. 6 extinction events. The Pale Ones had survived them all. Maybe survival required taking risks. What do you need from us? He asked. The plan came together quickly. The Pale Ones had been building their own infrastructure for thousands of years, hidden in the deep places of the solar system. They had facilities on Europa, Enceladus, even in the ice of distant Kuiper Belt objects. They couldn't build warships, but they had something else. Control systems, networks, the ability to interface with technology in ways humans had never imagined. When the Karathi warship crossed the orbit of Neptune, it started experiencing problems. Navigation systems flickered. Weapons targeting became unreliable. The ship's AI began reporting phantom errors that diagnostics couldn't explain. The crew grew increasingly nervous as their sophisticated vessel seemed to rebel against them. Meanwhile, Earth's small defense fleet moved into position. But they didn't attack. Instead, they maintained formation, weapons powered but not firing, simply watching and waiting. On the command frequency, Minho sent a message to the Karathi ship. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Sol system territorial space. We ask that you withdraw peacefully. We have no desire for conflict. The Karathi captain, frustrated by his malfunctioning systems, made a decision he would later regret. He ordered his weapons to fire, targeting the nearest Earth ship. The plasma cannons charged, locked on target, and fired. Nothing happened. The cannons powered down. The targeting systems reset. The ship's AI calmly announced a critical malfunction in the firing sequence. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in a chamber filled with Pale Ones interfaced with technology, humans were only beginning to understand. The defense of Sol system was being coordinated. The Pale Ones couldn't match the Karathi in weapons, but they could match them in electronics. And in a modern warship, electronics were everything. The standoff lasted 6 hours. The Karathi captain tried everything to get his weapons online, his engines to full power, his communications to work properly. Nothing functioned as it should. Meanwhile, Earth's ships maintained their positions, not attacking, just present, just watching. Finally, Admiral Krell himself contacted the Karathi ship, ordering it to withdraw. The warship limped back out of the Sol system, its crew baffled by what had happened. Their technology was superior to Earth's. They should have won easily. But somehow they had been completely neutralized without a single shot being fired by the humans. The incident became known throughout the galaxy within days. A technologically inferior species had defeated a Karathi warship without firing a shot. How had they done it? The official report blamed mechanical failures. But rumors spread. Rumors about Earth's hidden capabilities. Rumors about things the ancients had warned about. In the aftermath, President An Mirai called for a public address. The entire world watched as she stood before the cameras with Nari standing beside her. "People of Earth," the president began. "Today you meet a neighbor you never knew you had. This is Nari. She represents a species that has lived alongside humanity since before we built our first cities. They are the Pale Ones, and they are as much children of Earth as we are." The world erupted in shock, fear, excitement, and wonder. Some celebrated, others protested. Most simply tried to understand. But the choice had been made. The secret was revealed. There was no going back. "We face an uncertain future," President An continued. "The galaxy may isolate us. Other species may fear us. But we've learned something important today. Together, working as one world with two peoples, we're stronger than we are apart. So we make this choice, we stand together. We face whatever comes together. Earth is home to both humans and Pale Ones, and together, we will find our place in the galaxy." In the Ancients' chamber above Proxima Centauri, Elder Ventar watched the broadcast. The first year after the revelation was the hardest. 3 species immediately closed their borders to Earth. Trade agreements were canceled. Scientific exchanges were suspended. The galactic community, uncertain and afraid, chose isolation over cooperation. Earth's economy stumbled, then recovered as humans and Pale Ones began trading. Technology and resources that had been kept separate for thousands of years. Ambassador Songyeri stood in what had once been the United Nations building and was now the Terran Accord headquarters. She was human, but her co-ambassador June was a Pale One, younger than Nari and more comfortable interacting with surface dwellers. Together they represented Earth's new unified approach to the galaxy. "Another rejection," June said quietly, reading the message from the Vexian Consortium. "They won't meet with us until the Council makes a formal decision on Earth's status." Hieri sighed and looked out the window at New York City. The skyline was changing. Buildings were being modified to allow Pale Ones access to deeper underground spaces. Transit systems were being expanded downward as well as upward. Everywhere she looked, 2 species were learning to share a world they had divided for millennia. "We knew this would happen," she said. "The question is how long we can wait." Dr. Kim Hyun had moved to the new Joint Research Institute, a facility that existed both above and below ground. Here, human and Pale One scientists worked together, combining their different approaches to understanding the universe. The results were remarkable. "Look at this," Hyun said excitedly, showing her findings to a mixed group of researchers. "By combining human technology with Pale One biological engineering, we've created a hybrid system that can survive in environments neither species could handle alone." A young Pale One scientist named June, who had taken a position at the Institute after his ambassadorial work, examined the data. "This could allow us to colonize worlds we previously thought uninhabitable. Venus, the moons of Saturn, even rogue planets in deep space." "Exactly," Hyun agreed. "Separately, we're limited. Together, we can go anywhere." It was this kind of advancement that both excited and terrified the galactic community. Every few months, Earth announced a new breakthrough. Faster engines that combined human engineering with Pale One material science, medical treatments that worked for both species and could be adapted to others, communication systems that operated on principles neither species had fully understood alone. Captain Lee Minho, now promoted to admiral, commanded the first joint human Pale One starship. The vessel was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Its outer hull was standard human design, but its inner structure incorporated Pale One biotechnology. The crew was mixed, with humans handling conventional operations while Pale Ones managed systems that required interfacing with the ship's neural network. "It's ready for its trial run," Minho reported during a meeting with Earth's leadership. "We can reach Alpha Centauri in 3 weeks. That's twice as fast as our previous best time." Commander Han Taiyang, who had become Earth's overall military coordinator, reviewed the specifications. "And the defense systems? A combination of human weapons and Pale One electronic warfare capabilities. We tested it against our own military ships. They couldn't touch us. This was Earth's new strength. Not overwhelming firepower, but the combination of two very different approaches to problem solving. Humans thought in terms of building and conquering. Pale ones thought in terms of adapting and surviving. Together they were creating something that was more than the sum of their parts. But not everyone on Earth was happy with the changes. Integration was difficult. Some humans feared the Pale ones, saw them as invaders or aliens rather than fellow Earth natives. Some Pale ones preferred isolation, arguing that revealing themselves had been a mistake. Protests erupted in several cities. There were incidents of violence, though both species leaders worked hard to prevent escalation. Change is never easy, President Mirai said during one of her regular addresses, but we've made our choice. We're stronger together, and we'll work through our differences as we always have, with patience and understanding. Far from Earth, the Galactic Council was having its own struggles. The 47 quarantined twin worlds had taken notice of Earth's actions. If Earth could unify and face the galaxy together, why couldn't they? Unrest grew on several of these worlds. The Council's carefully maintained isolation was beginning to crack. This is what I feared, High Admiral Krell told the Council. Earth is inspiring rebellion. We must act decisively. But others disagreed. The Trell representative, a floating being of pure energy, spoke up. Or perhaps we've been wrong all along. Perhaps we've been isolating these worlds out of fear rather than necessity. Earth hasn't attacked anyone. They've defended themselves, yes, but they've shown no aggression. Maybe it's time to reconsider our policies. The debate raged for months. Species took sides. Old alliances were questioned. The galaxy was changing and Earth was the catalyst. It was Elder Ventar who finally requested a private meeting with Earth's representatives. The Ancient had not spoken publicly since the veto, but now it contacted Ambassador Songhyeri and Ambassador June directly, asking them to come to the Ancient's homeworld. The journey took 3 weeks, even with Earth's new ships. The Ancient homeworld was a carefully maintained garden planet, with cities that looked more like natural formations than artificial structures. Hyeri and June were escorted to a chamber that seemed carved from a single massive crystal. Elder Ventar appeared, still imposing despite the years. Rimhak was there too, standing at the Elder's side. Thank you for coming. Ventar's mental voice was softer than before, almost sad. I wanted to speak with you away from the Council's politics. We're honored, Hyeri replied, bowing respectfully. Though we're curious why you requested this meeting after so long. Ventar gestured and holographic images appeared around them. They showed a world beautiful and thriving, with cities that stretched across continents. 2 different architectural styles were visible, clearly from 2 different species living together. This was Vorkanis, Ventar explained. A twin world much like Earth. We discovered them 1,000,000 years ago. Both species were intelligent, peaceful, advanced. We welcomed them into the Council. The images shifted, showing the Vorkanis spreading to other systems, building colonies, growing stronger. Then the images showed conflict. Not with the Vorkanis, but among other Council species who feared them. They did nothing wrong, Ventar continued. They were simply too successful, too adaptable, too different from what the galaxy was used to. Within 2 centuries, half the Council wanted them quarantined. Some wanted them eliminated. What happened to them? June asked quietly. We quarantined them. We told ourselves it was for everyone's safety, including theirs. We cut them off from the rest of the galaxy. It's been nearly 1,000,000 years, and they're still isolated. Ventar's ancient eyes fixed on the 2 ambassadors. We thought we were making the wise choice. Now I wonder if we were simply making the easy choice. Why are you telling us this? Hyeri asked. Because I don't want to make the same mistake twice, Ventar replied. My species eliminated our counterparts 2,000,000 years ago. We told ourselves it was necessary for survival. We've regretted it every day since. When we found other twin worlds, we tried a different approach. We isolated them instead, but isolation is just a slower form of elimination. The Ancient moved closer, its massive form somehow conveying vulnerability. I'm old, Ambassador. Older than some stars. I've seen civilizations rise and fall. I've witnessed wonders and horrors beyond counting. And I tell you honestly, I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that fear should not be the guide. What are you proposing? June asked. I will sponsor Earth's membership in the Council, Ventar said. In exchange, I ask that you help us correct our past mistakes. There are 47 quarantined twin worlds. They need what you've achieved, what you can teach them about coexistence. Help us give them a chance. Hyeri and June looked at each other. It was a massive responsibility, perhaps an impossible one, but it was also an opportunity to prove that Earth's choice had been right. We'll need to discuss this with our government, Hyeri said carefully, but personally I think we'd be honored to help. 5 years after the revelation, Earth was formally admitted to the Galactic Council. The vote was close and many species abstained, but it passed. Earth took its place among the stars, not as one species but as two working together. The Twin World Initiative began 6 months later. Earth's combined team started visiting the quarantined worlds, offering guidance, sharing experiences, teaching what they had learned. It was slow work. Some worlds rejected the help. Some had species too different to work together, but others began to change. Admiral Lee Minho commanded the fleet that protected these missions. Dr. Kim Hae-yoon led the scientific teams that helped different species understand each other. Ambassador Song Hyeri and Ambassador June negotiated with the Council to ease restrictions on the twin worlds. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, failures, and sometimes tragedy, but slowly the galaxy began to change. Species that had feared twin worlds started to see possibilities instead. The rigid thinking that had dominated galactic politics for millions of years was cracking.